My name is Terrence Barkin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Graphene Council, the largest community in the world for graphene producers, researchers, application developers, and end users. We have hosted the Graphene in Healthcare and Medical Applications Conference Series, and the video you are about to watch is from that series.
Thanks, Terrence. So good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are on planet Earth. As Terrence mentioned, we are Zentek. If Zentek seems new to you, we were Zen Graphene Solutions. We just went through a rebranding and a new name. So this is still Zen Graphene, just better. So we're here to talk about our focus on healthcare. So we've been working with graphene for a number of years now. Our applications are actually ideally suited for this presentation because as part of our rebranding, we've really refocused our efforts in healthcare. So this is actually a perfect platform for us. Forward-looking statements, you guys can read that later. So, we'll talk about who we are, what we've done in terms of research, incorporating graphene oxide and nanocomposites to develop antivirals, antibacterial products, antifungal properties as well in there, how we've developed a coating with this product and the potential that this will have as a potential therapeutic pharmaceutical agent, and the toxicity results that we've had in early studies here. And then we'll talk about the commercialization opportunities that we are already doing. So Zen is a Canadian IP company. We've been in development, commercialization of next generation healthcare solutions, focusing primarily on prevention of disease and on a graphene-based basis also disease treatment. That of course will be a longer road, but we're excited about the potential there. From an ESG perspective, it's important to note that good health and well-being is number 3 on the list of sustainable development goals. So it's we're helping the planet here by what we're doing. There's been a lot of existing research out in the marketplace that graphene oxide, reduced graphene oxide, especially when you combine it with silver, can play a role. Graphene oxide by itself does have some antibacterial properties, as we can see on the graph on the left. But that activity is definitely increased significantly when we start adding silver to it. And that was some of the basis of our work back in March, April, when we started this in 2020. We started playing around with what was historically in the literature, adding silver nanoparticles. We use things like thiol groups to try to reduce the silver nanoparticles to be smaller and be more efficient. Even when we did this early work and our first round of testing, the best results we got there were disappointing at best. We were around the 25% efficiency as a coating on a mass product. So we really couldn't use what was in the literature, what was out there, and what had been done. So we really flipped this around and got our researchers to try to innovate. And actually, it was some of the work by one of our researcher that's focused normally on the corrosion space that found a different way to do things, and that's what led to a really novel compound here that we filed a patent on in September 2020. So if I move to the next slide here. If you remember, I talked about 25% reduction. Well, with this new compound now, we jumped to 99% on this result, and we've had results over 99.9%, making a significant difference in how a mask can now offer an antimicrobial effect. This is specifically here for COVID-19, which of course is the hot topic, especially at this time. This was back in August 2020. And this is what led us to believe we had something that was quite different from anything that was done in the literature. These results were, not even close to being achieved by what had been seen in literature. So this is what got us excited and got us to really focus on what we could do to help the pandemic and, develop a commercial entity around this product. So we've developed something that we've branded now as ZENGUARD. ZENGUARD is a mask. It's a 4-layer mask that has a coating on the spun-bond polypropylene. You can see this on the right. You can see some of the, a water droplet, the size of a virus compared to that. Our coating is obviously at the nanoscale. We're looking at 1 to 3 layer graphene oxide as part of our host material here. So incredibly thin. It doesn't affect the breathability of the mask at all. We've had tests actually with the CSA that demonstrated that the airflow was not impeded at all by our coating, and that's obviously due to the nano nature of our product. So not only did we get a coating here that increased or added antimicrobial properties, we had also a significant increase in the bacterial filtration efficiency and the viral filtration efficiency. As far as we understand it, we are the first mask in the world to get regulatory approval where the bacterial filtration efficiency and the viral filtration efficiency is over 99.99%, a 4-log reduction in the transmission of pathogens through a surgical mask. So we think that's a game changer in the PPE space. This, we believe, can also be applied to HVAC systems and reduce the transmission of aerosolized bacteria and viruses through HVAC systems. We've all begun to understand more recently that COVID is an aerosolized issue that can get through HVAC systems and continue infections in areas very far away from the unfortunately the diseased person that's contaminating the room. So being able to install this on HVAC systems, we believe can have a significant impact on the safety of infrastructure. We did go through rigorous Health Canada testing here. Health Canada's mandate is to protect the Canadian public above all. So they were concerned with the potential shedding of graphene oxide from the mask that could be absorbed and get into the lungs. So we had to go through extensive testing, confirm to Health Canada that there was no shedding of the material, that didn't pose a risk, that there was no skin irritation, no airflow restrictions. So we passed all that with Health Canada approval. The mask did receive an ASTM level 3 designation, so it had the highest breathability of a surgical mask, passed all the blood splatter tests, all those things as well. So from our perspective, this is the best surgical mask on the market, and it's now available for purchase. So we are there from basically an IP filing a patent back in September 2020 to being on the market with regulatory approval. Our team was incredible in how they executed this. Now I want to talk about some of the game-changing aspects of this. So when we look at graphene oxide, we know that it has some antibacterial properties by itself. We know that silver nanoparticles offer that as well. And when you combine the two, sometimes you can do better. Silver nitrate, so silver cations by themselves have antibacterial effects. So these are all the numbers that we see, that these are published in the literature. Anybody can look those up. We didn't want to give out our exact numbers here, but the MIC levels that we achieved were under 1 microgram per milliliter. Sometimes significantly under 1, as low as 0.008 micrograms per milliliter. So the novel compound that we formed of graphene oxide and silver, and the way we bounded it, has created a product that is somewhere between, call it 1,000 to 5,000 times more effective than graphene oxide by itself, or silver nanoparticles by themselves, or silver nanoparticles with graphene oxide bounded, sort of a traditional bounding with either thiol groups or just bound normally through covalent bonds. So this is a breakthrough technology. It's very different from what's in the literature, and the results we're getting are just completely different from literature. So we've registered this through CAS as a novel compound. And because of the activity this has on numerous pathogens, we're talking about gram-positive, gram-negative, multi-drug resistant versions of these bacteria. We've tested against fungi, we've tested it against viruses. This compound is incredibly active against all those pathogens. So we also believe that this will be able to be used as a an agent or a pharmaceutical product in the future. We've also done some early work where we know silver has some anti-inflammatory properties, and it seems that the way we've combined this, we also are multiplying the anti-inflammatory properties of silver through the way we've combined this. The way we've combined this is fairly novel. If you look at what complex bonds are or chelated bonds are, over 90% of our bonding between the silver and the graphene oxide is through these type of bonds. That is the novelty here, and how we managed to do that, how we managed to synthesize that is really the key to this compound. Now, we know this is very effective. Is this something that can be used as therapeutic? And we wouldn't know that unless we started doing animal trials on safety. So we did start that. We did 2 different studies here, which we'll discuss in here further on rats. The first thing we did is we tried to figure out a maximum dose that could be used. We went up to 2,000 milligrams per kilogram of body weight for the rats. Even at that massive dose, which we have to push down the throat into their stomach, the rats had no ill effect at all. So based on this, we moved forward with a 7-day study, repeat dose, low dose, mid dose, high dose. Important to notice the high dose here is 100,000 times to 200,000 times the MICs that we had against those various pathogens we talked about earlier. And even with this very heavy dose, this got through the gut, the digestive tract, came out with basically no ill effect at all to the rats. So early times, early studies, but this compound seemed to be extremely effective against pathogen. And at this time, with this one early study, seems to be very safe to use. So to resume, we've got 2 products. We're working on prevention with masks. We envision a whole host of different products coming from there, but the mask is what we have in production right now. I'll use a little prop here. This is a box of our masks. It is on the market, available now. We are going to be looking at new products as well, new innovations using this compound in fabrics, in HVAC. So there'll be more news to come on that front. And we also believe that this product will be something that we can use for treatment of human disease, potential pharmaceuticals, especially for skin irritation, skin diseases. We think we'll be able to play a significant role there. Wound treatment is something else that we think might be interesting. So lots of potential due to the properties of this very unique product. So maybe with that, I will stop there and take some questions.
Francis, thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing the innovations at Zentek. From the Graphene Council side, we've obviously worked closely with you guys, and we're happy to help with some testing. of product, and that's just another way of signaling to the community that the Graphene Council does have the ability to help organizations with some of those aspects with testing and characterization of material. The repositioning of Zen Graphene to Zentek, does that mean you guys are pretty much exclusively looking then at the healthcare sector and going up the value chain with these additional products, or does that mean you'll still look at some other applications for graphene outside of healthcare?
So we are focused on healthcare. That is, our main focus as a business right now. We've got a lot of interest in what we can bring to market. We're, revenue generating now. So as a public company or any company, when you can flip the switch from R&D to revenue, it is a significant time in a company, and we flipped that switch now. We had our first commercial shipment in September this year. So we're very excited by that. We keep working towards developing that in more markets. However, there is other IP that we're working on. We actually announced a new ice-phobic coating. We tested that in a wind tunnel in Ottawa here. The results were spectacular, to be honest with you. It was 4 to 5x more ice-phobic than the best commercial product we've seen on the market, and that is a graphene-based compound that we've developed. We've got a fuel additive as well that we're pushing through as well. We've got some great partners on that one. So we're still looking at other IP, but as a public company marketing, we have to sort of pick a lane at some point to make it easier for investors to know what we're doing, what we're focused on. And so we've made that decision to focus on healthcare.
Well, that makes perfect sense. If there's anything we've observed over the past 8 years with graphene companies, is that the multiple applications that graphene can be deployed against is both an opportunity and a challenge, right? Is where do you focus, because there's just so many different ways to use this material. So I think you're on a great path with that. Just want to ask a couple of slightly technical questions. And I think it's, you guys have been quite prudent with the amount of testing that you're doing and in compliance with the regulatory processes. Regarding the material, the actual compound at the end is a combination of some compound of silver and graphene and perhaps other elements. What about the life cycle, the disposability of the individual masks, for example? And maybe at the same time, I'd throw in another question. When you talk about this coating being added for the face masks, it's not very much. How much actual material is in there on a per mask basis?
So great questions, and it's something that we had to deal with both with Health Canada and Environment Canada. So the amount of material, again, we're working at the nano scales, and that's one place where being a nano material really helps. We've got silver on our graphene oxide. Silver is something that is a concern from an environmental standpoint. But the amount of material that we're putting on a mask to get our the effect, the advantages we bring to the mask is so slight compared to what we see in industries that we got a pass from Health Canada on that, no problem at all. So we were very fortunate, but that's the nature of nanomaterials. You don't need a lot to do a lot. So that's one thing there where we didn't have to worry about it. In terms of how much material, a little bit proprietary, but it's in the the milligram amount. Under 10 milligrams, it's very it's a very low amount. We just don't want to say exactly what we're doing there.
No, I understand. And the next question that from our audience is probably in a similar vein of being a little too close to proprietary information. But I think your observation on the fact that you need because these compounds are so highly effective and they're operating at that nanoscale, that the physical amount, the amount of material there can be exceptionally small, which also speaks to the cost issue. That even if the compounds themselves on a nominal basis were fairly expensive, you're using so little on a per unit basis that makes them quite cost competitive. One of the technical questions that was asked was about how this is actually applied, because we've seen where graphene materials are embedded in fibers, in the liquid phase, and then the fibers are spun or it's done as a coating. If it doesn't cover proprietary techniques and stuff, how is the material actually adhered to the polypropylene?
So I'll talk in generalities here. We've worked with both sort of a dip and squeeze process and a spray process. And once one of those is applied, then it goes through a curing process where we use heat to cure the compound onto the fibers. So that's basically what we're doing is either a dip and squeeze or a spray, and then a curing process using heat.
Understood. And so beyond masks, which are, I think they're here to stay for quite some time, right? We're not getting rid of COVID, and it continues to wax and wane, and we need and better tools are going to be needed. Do you have other immediate products down the line, or do you have other areas that you think what are the most promising areas you want to try to approach?
Sure. Let me first address that before COVID hit, the world was still consuming about 100 billion surgical masks a year, right? So there was very high demand before this. Hospitals, healthcare facilities, people in Asia were certainly a lot more used to wearing surgical masks before COVID-19. I think it's become a new thing now. We've seen numbers as high as 1.5 trillion masks being used in 2020 due to the COVID. Where's the steady state? I don't think we're ever going back under 100 billion. The 1.5 trillion, may not stick up that high, but we think 500, 600, 700 billion masks a year is probably going to be the steady state going forward, just because COVID's not going away. There's going to keep being, I think we're getting close to an endemic situation where it's going to be part of our life. This thing just mutates too much. We're seeing, unfortunately, vaccines have a great effect when they come on board, but the latest research we've seen is within 4, 5, 6 months, the antibodies drop significantly. And that's why we're now talking about booster shots, right? So it's something that I think we're having a hard time, even with the best minds in the world focusing on developing vaccines. We're not getting vaccines that last 10 years, not even 1 year. So I can't see COVID going away. So masks are still the number one way to prevent disease spread from our perspective, and a better mask is going to be the way to move forward. So we're pretty excited from that perspective. However, when you're in a hospital setting, things like gowns, booties, caps, bed sheets, potentially curtains, all these products in a hospital setting could benefit from an antimicrobial coating. So lots of other opportunities for us to apply our coating. HVAC filters, we're doing some great work on that, and we look forward to bringing our shareholders up to date on that. We think HVAC is going to be another big opportunity for this product.
Excellent. No, that all makes perfect sense. If you think of all the surfaces and the issues with hospital-acquired infections and the need to really, make as sterile an environment as possible. I was curious about the animal testing that you had done, with graphene. Unfortunately, we live in an era of misinformation, intentional or otherwise, and people concerned about any material that's new that they don't understand, and toxicity issues. I think it's great that you guys had the animal studies done. Do you have more toxicity testing in the pipeline? And we know that that's a very expensive process. Is there anything on the horizon to actually have multiple companies come together to maybe share some of these costs? Because they can be quite high to get through this animal testing and toxicity testing phases.
Yeah, it's not a cheap endeavor. Maybe I'll I'll expand a little bit on what I said earlier. So, we did these studies with these rats, even at the very high dose. The only thing they really noticed was that the feces on the high dose turned dark after 4 days. That was basically the only clinical finding of relevance. The silver did get into the bloodstream a little bit, very little compared to what was ingested, and was the half-life there was very, very short and got processed very quickly. So from our perspective there, that study was excellent, a great starting point for us. We do have our own next phase of studies going on there. We have we haven't reached out to anybody. We haven't had anybody reach out to us to partner on such studies. We probably would be open to participating in certain things like that. But we do want to move forward with our compound as a potential pharmaceutical. So we will be doing further safety studies here, especially for topical applications. That's the easiest way to start as a pharmaceutical. Topicals are a lot easier, faster way to market. So that's where we'll be going next in terms of safety studies.
Excellent. I don't have any other questions. I think we've exhausted the questions we have from the audience. So I'll just take that opportunity to say thank you very much, Francis. I appreciate you participating today. We value Zentek as another one of our member companies in the Graphene Council, and wish you guys tremendous success with this direction that you're taking with the company. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And if we have, I haven't kept an eye on the time, but if there's any time, we're getting to the end here. But so just to tell you that we can do things at scale with graphene. So we are in the procurement stage right now of a industrial production facility to produce 26 tons of graphene oxide silver per year. So that's a very significant amount of nanomaterials. I think that would put us at the top or near the top of an application development on a commercial industrial scale. So, things are possible in the graphene stage from that commercial perspective.
Well, that's an interesting development. We do have a minute or two yet. So what's the timeline for your production facility?
So we're producing materials right now on a pilot scale. We're doing about 1 to 1.5 million masks a day. I don't want to give out more numbers there because it's easier to do the back math on that. But yeah, we're moving to about 800 million masks a month or 25 million masks a day. And that should start towards middle to end of Q1. So that's exciting to see that come online.
Excellent. Well, that's awesome news, and appreciate you sharing that with us here today. So thank you again. Really appreciate your participation. On behalf of the Graphene Council, I want to thank everybody for participating and for your interest in this sector. Clearly, graphene has a very important future in healthcare applications, whether it be for devices, medical sensing, diagnostics, or even in some of the infrastructure of gowns and devices and elastomer products, etc., that can be enhanced with graphene. So with that, I want to thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in the Graphene Council. If you have any questions, if you need any guidance, if you need information, anything to do with graphene or any of the companies that you saw in the past 2 days, please reach out to us, and thank you for your time and attention.